Hello and welcome to a third straight day of a live Nittany Dispatch. I am John Sauber, Penn State beat writer for Snyder Daily Times. She's Audrey Snyder doing the same at InsideTheLines.substack.com. And Audrey, I guess this is day one of Penn State's head coaching search, technically.
The first full day.
Yes.
Day one of however many.
I'm guessing, math is hard. Give me a second. I'm guessing probably 50-ish days. Does that sound right? 50-ish days, 7 weeks, something like that.
I don't know, John, that sounds a little bit too short.
I don't know. I think 7 weeks is probably actually what ends up.
Probably, we're probably what, mid-December? Yeah, maybe 60-ish.
Yeah, I think early December is.
As I already am wearing my glasses and rubbing my eyes and
I was going to say I've not even bothered to put my contacts in today. We spoke to Penn State Athletic Director Pat Kraft today. Terry Smith spoke, Penn State's interim head coach. So some things are happening. No, there are no updates on who Penn State is hiring. It is still very much in the early stages. If you want some info on that, Audrey and I actually talked about that pretty extensively yesterday in our live show. There are definitely going to be some names that continue to pop up. Matt Rhule was actually asked about it today. We can get into that a little bit, but let's start with Pat Kraft. Audrey, what was your primary takeaway from what he said at today's press conference?
He was bold. I mean, and I was thinking about this, out of all of the Power 4 athletic directors, how many of them in the country would have actually made the move, right, to part ways with James Franklin? Like, it's got to be a small percentage, right? Pretty small figure. And the thing that struck me was kind of the tenor and the tone of it. And Kraft, was the one who fired James Franklin, and this is very much going to be part of his legacy as anything. And he walked into the Lash building Sunday afternoon around 1:00 and walked up those steps to James Franklin's office, and they had the conversation of, hey, thank you for everything you've done, but this is the end of the road. And James Franklin was understanding of that. And that's the other part that I think maybe helps fans better understand it. Like, James Franklin's been in the business long enough. He told us last week it's a results-oriented business. Like, he was not surprised by this. And as you and I discussed several times, like, you could sense that Saturday that it was coming. But the thing that struck me most was when Pat Kraft said that this is not a 3-game thing. Like, he took the totality of the Franklin tenure, all of it, into account. Now, obviously, the last three games are significant. Like, nobody expected Penn State to lose to Northwestern, especially after UCLA. Like, there was belief internally that they were going to get this thing together, that UCLA was this weird one-off, whatever. But Kraft said, I am not shy to admit it. I'm here to win a national championship. So you talk about, as we heard many times from James Franklin, Penn State needs to be bold and aggressive. Pat Kraft was being bold and aggressive.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned James. I think it's probably a lot to process for him right now, too. This is we talked about yesterday, and I think it came to fruition today. It was very weird walking into the Beaver Stadium press room and not talking to James during a game week. Not a lot of talk about Iowa this week. This is not what this is. This is not what this week's about.
It's not the biggest story. Yeah.
Yeah, and I said that was true of Drew Allar's injury too, which ended his Penn State career. That's the focus now is, and we'll get into that with Drew at some point about like what comes next for him and what all that looks like. But right now the focus is whatever comes next, and in the immediate, it's Terry Smith working on keeping this roster together, right, and keeping things going in a positive direction. And like you said, Pat emphasized a lot during his presser. One of the things that caught my eye was him emphasizing that Terry is like a lifelong Penn Stater. It is, it's important that he bleeds blue and white, so to speak, right? Like all of those parts of this. And I think that makes Terry uniquely qualified to kind of carry through this next 6, 7, 8 weeks, whatever it ends up being, because they need somebody that can keep the roster together and that can keep things together, not just for this season, but the following season, because Terry was asked about recruiting and that aspect of things. My expectation is there's going to be a lot of turnover, right? Yeah. Coaching staff, personnel.
But there was going to be a reset with this roster, at least. Obviously not personnel, but there was going to be a roster reset regardless.
But I think the biggest difference is the guys that we all looked at as like, these are the guys that take the next step and become the primary pieces. They could leave too, right? Like, I don't think
Coleman, Max Granville. Yeah.
It's not out of bounds to say that Chaz Coleman is probably hearing from every team in the country already. Pat Kraft said he's not naive to say that he all of their players on the roster are probably hearing from all these teams. They're intermediaries, however you want to talk about it. It happens. This is how the portal works. The portal doesn't have to be open for players to get recruited from other teams. It's just the nature of college football now. So now they have to focus on that part of it, because I think Terry is going to do a good job of being the head coach of this team, sort of being the guy that everyone rallies around. I wouldn't be surprised if they perform better. I don't think they're going to get more wins necessarily, but I wouldn't be surprised if they perform better than we anticipate against Iowa. But yeah, like to me, all of this is now about the future of the program and kind of not wiping away 2025, but kind of forgetting that this happened.
Pretty much.
Right? Yeah, like pretending that the 2025 season just is a blip on the radar and figuring out how to make 2026 and beyond better.
Yeah, all the preseason predictions, the games, the fun thoughts.
No.
Wiping it all away. Is that what you're saying?
No. I still win that. Yes.
Wow, we have to check. We have not dug into those. We've been a little busy on other things.
With what?
But yeah, I think Terry Smith is the perfect guy for this. I've been impressed with Terry as long as he's been here. If I could speak, that would be great. He's a guy with a lot of energy. He's a really savvy recruiter, and he's a guy that players respect. He is honest, brutally honest, which is what his cornerbacks have come to really respect with him, and the fact that he lets them like set the depth chart and say, "Hey, where do you think you rank?" Because he wants that dialogue to be honest and to be direct. And Terry Smith spoke with this team on Sunday as well, and basically said a lot of what we heard from today, which is, hey, you all are auditioning for someone, and either it's the next coaching staff at Penn State if you want to try and stay, it's the transfer portal, or it's the NFL. Like, we got 6 games, and you guys came here to play football. We came here as a staff to coach football. This is what we love. So this is not what we wanted, but this is where we're at. And you know what? Like, get on board because we're moving on. It's Iowa week, whatever. And I think that's like the right tone. I'm curious the demeanor that we see Saturday night in Kinnick Stadium. Like, I do think Terry brings some juice, brings some energy. And quite frankly, I mean, that was lacking. When you look at this team against Northwestern, it was obvious, and James Franklin even acknowledged it. Like, it was apparent that all of this happening outside of James and the future speculation at that point, it was wearing on this team, and there was no juice. And Terry Smith, he said they got to get their toughness back, they got to get their grittiness back, and John, they got to get their swag back.
Yeah, I think this is a team that needs to just have fun and relax and play football, right? I think,
and maybe stop overthinking all of it. Can we
Yes.
stop with the overthinking? Yeah.
Yes. Well, and I think at the end of the day, the conversations about James were wearing on everybody, the coaches, the players, like they were all thinking about it. So
you and I.
Yeah, right. Like we constantly are thinking about it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they come out and play way looser on Saturday. I will say one thing that Terry said too, that I don't know. I don't want to say I don't know if I believe it, but he said he was surprised and stunned that James was fired Sunday. Terry must not listen to the Nittany Dispatch, because Saturday night there were some strong hints made about where things were heading.
Not only strong hints, John, but I consistently said I didn't think James would be the coach next year. But also, we also hit on, well, Terry Smith is the obvious choice for the reunion. So if Terry listened to the Nittany Dispatch, he would know that by Saturday night, we're already appointing him. Yeah, to interim head coach.
Some of us even said that we didn't think James would be having a press conference on Saturday after that game. Weird. Wonder how those things came about. Anyways, I thought it was surprising that he was surprised, I guess. I don't know. Maybe the tenor was different in the building than it was outside in such a drastic degree. But I think to me, it felt like the end was near pretty quickly, and it sounded like the end was near pretty quickly, which is, this is how things go in college football. This is the world of college football. One thing I wanted to touch on too, Pat Kraft declined to discuss the specifics of the buyout, and he said that it will be paid by the athletic department. It's not a university bill, which is important, obviously.
Notable.
But as we've discussed on this podcast, he did not say this, to be clear, but I am saying this. Again, I am under the impression, as is Audrey, that this is not a lump sum payment.
It is not. Not a lump sum.
I know that for certain. It is not a lump sum payment. It'll be paid out of the term of James's contract. But 2, it is not necessarily the number everyone's seen floating around, the 49, 50 million, whatever. There are offsets if James gets hired by another program that will diminish how much Penn State owes him. And so, I would be floored if this buyout ends up being 50 million or 56 or 49.
If James Franklin wants to call the Hogs at Arkansas, I don't know if he does, but if he wants to, what they then pay them would impact Penn State and that $8 million a year figure, right? That $8 million then would lessen. So I've seen it out there quite a bit of, oh, Penn State's paying him $50 million and it's crazy. How are you going to do this? Blah, blah, blah. Like, again, it is not a lump sum. Think of it in chunks of $8 million per year. And at some point, James Franklin's going to get bored. He might be bored already. For all we know with the guy, he doesn't sit still much. So if most of you, if you're listening to us, you're Penn State fans. If you want Penn State to maximize their value on this move, you want James Franklin to get another job elsewhere sooner rather than later to kind of offset those costs. And the other thing is you're going to have these coordinators. And I asked Terry Smith about the defense and is there anything you could do at this point to maybe simplify this defense moving forward? Because clearly there's a learning curve. And he said it starts with the toughness with the D-line and the offensive line, and that they got to work on that. And I mentioned that because these coordinators are part of the equation too. And John, don't rule it out that we're in a scenario. So rule it out. Yeah, there we go. Pun not intended that time for once. Don't cross it out that Penn State is in a situation where the next head coach, where there's a conversation of, hey, so Jim Knowles, we brought him here on a 3-year deal. We'd really like it if you'd keep Jim. Like that's definitely something that could be at play here because, again, you just brought him in. He's regarded as one of the best coordinators in the country, and I don't think Jim Knowles forgot how to coach overnight, right? Like I think we're going to see that defense come along.
Yeah. And I'll say this, I would be surprised if that's not the case with more than just Jim Knowles specifically on that defensive staff. But before we get too far into this, let's take a quick break to hear some words from our sponsors. The rivalries, the marching bands, the upsets. Saturdays just got way more fun. College football is back. Think you know the game? Put your knowledge to the test with DraftKings Sportsbook and turn your picks into big payouts. With live betting, rivalry week, odds boosts, and more, DraftKings Sportsbook has everything you need to own every Saturday. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code DISPATCH. That's code DISPATCH. For new customers, get $300 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. In partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. Fees may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
John, this is 3 days, and I believe this is 3 consecutive pieces of Roback apparel that you're wearing. Am I correct?
Oh, it is more than 3 days. Got the hoodie on. I am wearing the joggers again today, which I wore to the presser.
Would you like to stand up and show those off?
I'm not going to do that.
Okay. Well, new customers over at Roback can save 20% off their first purchase with code TND20. That's TND20 as in the Nittany Dispatch 20. Get your hoodies, your joggers, your hats, all of your performance apparel, and even some Penn State gear if you're still looking to support the Nittany Lions in this new era that they're going to begin at some point soon. Don't forget to use code TND20 to save 20% off your first purchase over at roback.com.
There is, as we get back to the show, one bit of reporting that I saw that I feel like is important to correct. Adidas had nothing to do with this decision. I thought we could just go without even mentioning it because it's so crazy. I know, but I think some people, it blew up. Adidas had nothing to do with Penn State's decision. They did not have input in firing James Franklin. This was Pat Kraft's and his staff's decision, but mostly Pat Kraft's decision to fire James Franklin. I can't believe that even became a thing, quite frankly. But it's incredible.
It's not a thing. I ignored it the whole time.
I know, but I am actively reporting that is not true, and I'm doing that right here, right now. And I think it's important to say that because this is, at the end of the day, and this gets me where I was going anyways, this is Pat Kraft's decision, and this is Pat Kraft's legacy, right? And he didn't get asked about it today, but I think it is abundantly clear. He did say he wants to win national championships, but this is his legacy, who this head coach is, and if they win national championships, right? Like he is about to make the decision that defines how people remember him at Penn State and as an athletic director.
And, he said, like, hey, we have all the resources. We went all in with the resources. And back to the point I made when we started the show, this is a move that few athletic directors would be willing to make. I mean, you're trading in, hey, always going to be a 9-10 win team for the unknown. And that's scary. There's risk. But when you come in here to be aggressive and you talk about alignment and all these things that James Franklin fought for this program, at the end of the day, so much of what Franklin worked for is going to be on the next head coach who walks into a really attractive situation. This was also, I wanted to mention this, a conversation I was having with someone else late last night, talking about the profile of the Penn State job. And this is a job that under normal circumstances has not come open pretty much ever, right? Because when it comes open after Joe Paterno, obviously there's the sanctions with Bill O'Brien. When James Franklin takes the job, you still are coming out of the sanctions, the scholarship limitations. So this is the first time in our lifetimes for sure, and well beyond that, that the Penn State job is coming open in normal circumstances, right? And obviously we've seen the increased commitment, but I think that's important because like you talk about monumental moments for this program, we're in the midst of one of them right now just because we haven't seen the job when it's been at this level come open. So you talk about, okay, well, how attractive is it? How much is Penn State willing to spend? Well, you just got rid of the coach with this tied with the second most wins in program history because you want to win a national championship. So, you're not going out there and hiring the next project. You're hiring someone who can win right away.
You're not hiring who you hired when you hired James Franklin, right? Like even that version of James probably isn't proven enough to get this job.
Now, I think where this will get interesting is once you get past that top tier of candidates, what if they strike out on those guys? What if those guys say no? Obviously, things are going to change between now and when Penn State actually begins the process. Like, that's the other part. This is so fresh that, like, I can say with certainty, Penn State's list is not finalized. Like, their search committee will be formed. Like, they're not there yet. This is all very much like, hey, like Kraft said, I felt I had to be prepared for this, but he wasn't planning on doing this, right? No one planned to be sitting here talking about the next head coach at Penn State on October 13th, especially not this year. But again, that's all happening in the context of this season. Like you and I said, it's so bizarre that the game is not the main story this week. And quite frankly, the games are not going to be the main story the rest of this season. I mean, it is.
Well, one of them will be.
Well, true. Yeah. Well, yeah. And Nebraska game. Yeah. When Matt Rhule comes to town. Yeah. What did Mr. Rhule say today, John? Is there anything that you can rule out?
No.
On?
So Matt Rhule was had his weekly press conference at Nebraska today, and was asked about this and said that he loves Pat Kraft, loves James Franklin, is disappointed that this happened to James Franklin. Actually talked a lot about what we talked about the treatment of Franklin by the fan base too. Emphasized, that he has a great relationship with Troy Dannon, Nebraska AD, who used to be at Washington and joined him. But he made it very clear that he does still love Penn State. Said he was born with, was put in a Penn State shirt, right? Like, it was very much showed a lot of love for Penn State. Said that he's focused on the team this year and that he will be. There was one response that he gave that I thought was really interesting. Someone asked him about essentially and I apologize, I don't know who the reporters were asking. If I did, I assure you I would give them credit. They did a great job, for what it's worth, the Nebraska beat, of asking these questions and kind of staying on this point. But he, one of the things that he said is that he's going to be as honest with his players as he can, kind of implying that maybe he's not going to be as honest publicly with those things because he can't be, which is not like out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
But there's also an implication that would mean you need to be dishonest publicly. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and so nothing he said would make me rule him out, if you will. And makes me, in fact, everything he said makes me believe that he would have a ton of interest in this job if that's who Penn State wants to hire. I know that I have heard, this has been 30 hours since 28 hours, something like that, since James got fired. But I have heard that this will not be as easy as Matt Rhule just accepting if Penn State offers. I don't think anything is that simple.
I think there is legitimate happiness in Nebraska with him right now. Mm-hmm.
And they have to convince him if they want him. But I wouldn't be surprised if that is where this ends. In fact, I said this, I think I said this yesterday. I think you did too. My expectation right now would be if I were to put, have to pick someone, it would be Matt Rhule to be the next head coach. But if you were to require me to pick that or the field, I would probably pick the field. But if I were required to pick one individual candidate, it would be Rhule.
And to be clear, you're not mentioning the Field Burger and Tap, where I
That's
don't know
correct.
what happens to James Franklin's burger.
I like James. That was a terrible burger.
So way back when at my previous employer, I did a story on, it was a fun story on like all these unique places in different, like a bunch of us beat writers back when we had a bunch of them, did these stories about these different, like local businesses and what they mean. And so I wrote about Franklin and his burger, and a great anecdote I talked to the chef, and it was great. I sat there. They made me a bunch of food, like burgers, fries. They made me the Franklin burger so we could take photos of it, the whole thing. And talking to the people at the restaurant, and I was like, okay, do you have any stories with James Franklin? And they were like, actually, yeah, he crashed a wedding reception. Like, this was, again, probably 5-6 years ago, where people were getting married over there at the conference center or whatever it is. And Franklin happened to be there, and it was a Penn State wedding, and he just walked in, and people were like, oh my God. But, I think there are stories like that.
Yeah.
That you hear, again, by living here, by being around the program. And I think that's the other thing that the last, 30 hours, a lot of us have been thinking about of, again, you walk in there Monday, James isn't there. It's weird. But you're like, oh yeah, we're feeling that, but there's also a whole group of people in the Lash football building who were brought here by, and in many cases for, James Franklin. And, how everyone moves past that this week is really just a fascinating dynamic. And it's okay, the fact that you recruited as James Franklin, every person on that roster, right? You brought in all of these coaches, all of these staff members, everybody from the top down. It's going to be a weird week. It's going to be a weird rest of the season, but it's on Terry Smith to get these guys ready. And I think what we saw today from Terry was a really good indication, and also tremendous comedic moment from Terry Smith. He was asked, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, but Max Rolfe of Penn Live said to him, hey, by my estimation, meaning Max's, there are 31 players who are eligible to kind of move on, right? At least. And Terry answered the question and said, hey, we're here, everybody's auditioning for their next job, whether that's here or whatever. And he said, well, I'm glad the number's 31. Thank you for telling me that. Now I know. And then at the end, he stood up to leave, and he just paused and smiled and was like, pray for me. Yeah. And I think this is a guy who, again, great personality, players respect him. He's always been great to us to interact with, to deal with, super friendly, approachable guy.
I have to think he's going to be on the next staff that's here, as long as he wants to be.
Yes. As I was going to say, if he wants to be, it would be really dumb for the next head coach to not want Terry Smith on the staff.
I'm not usually a you must hold on to this coach kind of guy, because new coaching staff should be allowed to bring in who they want. But Terry Smith, it would be a no-brainer to me to bring on. Yeah,
and when you say that, John, you hit on something, and it's the point of the next head coach. You get the opportunity to do it your way. And I have a story up over on my Substack on Inside the Lions that you can check out. A lot of stuff up over there of the last 36 hours, covering all angles of the coaching search. As always, that's where my best work will be, over there behind the paywall to keep the lights on. But I went back to and wrote a column Sunday night about the one thought that I have about James Franklin and why I think it kind of perfectly explains why Penn State and James were never able to get to elite together and why this kind of fell apart. And I think it's worth your time. It's a unique perspective, again, by being here on the ground since the day the man stepped off the plane to the day he got let go in his office. I've been here for the whole duration, and we'll be here for whatever comes next. But yeah, part of wanting to do it your way is what James wanted to do. And part of that was he wanted to be in control of everything. And as this season spiraled, it became abundantly clear that his future was out of his control. And I get into a lot of layers in that story, but it's up over my Substack there also, as well as stuff from Pat Kraft. I've got more coaching search intel coming out. We'll hear from players, presumably, on Tuesday, Wednesday this week. I'm imagining it'll be kind of like a normal week. I am heading out to Iowa early Thursday night. So who knows what kind of trouble I'll get into in Iowa City.
I
Hopefully
was going to
none.
say it's important to note that it is highly unlikely that we are live tomorrow night, Tuesday night for our usual show. I would imagine we will be back probably Wednesday.
It's going to say have to be Wednesday because I'm on a flight Thursday. Yeah.
That's true. Wednesday night after practice is my guess, probably around 8:00-ish, somewhere in there, to talk about everything we hear from players. And Terry, again, this week, we'll talk to him post-practice and just kind of any updates that we had. There were a couple of things I wanted to touch on first before we get out of here. One, you mentioned the coach's burger thing. I remember 2 years ago, I wrote a story over at SenderDaily.com. You can actually find this, where I tried the Dombachery, right? The Eric and Dombach's burger. It is a rib. It's basically a cheesesteak. And I got to tell you, that thing is delicious. That is
really?
Yeah, they got rid of the Shrewsburger, which had peanut butter on it, which was my favorite. You got to go light peanut butter because it doesn't work with the beard. But the Dombachery, 10 out of 10 burger, would recommend that. And I saw a question in the chat that I wanted to address real quick. We'll get, we'll try and get to more questions on Wednesday. But I saw someone suggest Brian Hartline. To the broader point, I would be stunned if the next head coach doesn't have head coaching experience at the FBS level in all likelihood, right? Like my anticipation,
they're swinging big, very big.
My anticipation is that they are going to take a lot of big swings. I don't know where it's going to end up. Like I said, I have my predictions and whatnot of where the most likely outcome is, but I still expect them to swing very big. And I just do not see, as much as I love Will Stein, as I said yesterday, and I think he's going to be a great head coach, I don't see someone like that or Brian Hartline or Glenn Schumann or anyone sort of in that group being considered for Penn State, right? Like from talking to people about this search so far, from the discussions I've had with people, I do not anticipate them going with a coordinator. Yeah,
there's one name that you can rule out too, but I will save that for the Substack. Always the saleswoman over here.
There's also a name that you can roll out that I said yesterday on yesterday's show, and I stand by that one too.
You're I'm going to describe you, John Sauber, as a Stein stan. There we go.
Yes.
John Sauber, Stein stan. Yeah.
That'll work. That'll do it, though, I think, for today. Like I said, we'll be back Wednesday night. We'll talk more about this, but we'll also talk about the Iowa game a little bit. Until then, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave those 5-star ratings. That really helps us out. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button down below. Hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate everyone that is here watching live, watching after the fact, listening after the fact. Show up with your questions when you can in the live chat. That would be wonderful. We're always looking to help you guys as much as we can and be as much of an asset sort of as we can. We understand that this show only works because of you guys, and we're greatly appreciative of you. If you want to find Audrey's work, you can find it InsideTheLines.substack.com. You can find her on Twitter at OddSnyder4. You can find her on Blue Sky if you search Audrey Snyder. You can find me on Twitter at John Sauber, and on Blue Sky if you search John Sauber. You can find all of my work at SenderDaily.com. Until Wednesday night, thank you for tuning in, and have a great day.